Hello, everybody. What's up? Welcome to Common Censored. I'm Lee Camp, joined by the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield.
I'm always Eleanor Goldfield.
Always. Join right now by the always Eleanor Goldfield.
I'm very comfortable in myself.
That sounds like an insult.
What?
Because it sounds like I was going to say always amazing, and then I was like, nah, just always.
No,
just always Eleanor Goldfield.
I'm just always me.
She's just always there.
I'm
all
not
right.
Always there. I'm like an omnipresent creeper or anything.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Are we allowed to move on, you think? Got a lot of important stories to cover right now, so let's do it. Please make sure to say hello. Throw in the chat where you're coming to us from. If you got a chance, if you're watching live, why not? And Astro wants the intro guitar to be played by you.
No, Eleanor, I think they're saying that. Oh, well, maybe they are saying that they want me to play it. No. But if you're asking if it is me, that's also no. No to both.
It's tough to say which that meant, but either way, no. But for a long time, I can't use Eleanor as the intro because I'll get a copyright strike, even if Eleanor gives me permission to use it, the way YouTube works.
I've gotten a copyright infringement on my own music video. They're like, this music belongs. I'm like, I know.
Nice. They're like, you can keep showing it, but we're collecting all of the ad dollars from forever or ever. Okay, so let's start with a little. We'll get to Blinken lying blatantly in front of Congress in just 1 second. But I just wanted to bring this story first, which basically relates to it, that Israel has already displaced, basically made refugees out of almost 100,000 people in Lebanon in 3 days, according to a UN report. Israel has forcibly displaced nearly 100,000 people in Lebanon. The UN reported as Israeli forces appear to be gearing up for a ground invasion of Lebanon. Just since Monday, at least 90,000 people in Lebanon have been forced to flee their homes. Israel has ordered evacuations in wide swaths of Lebanon and bombarded civilian areas that Israeli officials claim without evidence. Oh, no, that's not true. There is evidence. They had that AI image they made, they mocked up of a missile in someone's apartment. So that proves it, I feel like. Without evidence that they are sites for military activity, a claim Israel has also used to justify bombing. Don't touch those. Justify bombing homes, schools, refugee camps, and hospitals. I was just waiting for the whole thing to go black. And all over 200,000 people. So it's really 200,000 have been displaced since, basically since a year ago. But
a year ago? What?
October 7th.
Oh, I thought you meant from 3 days ago.
200,000 total. 100,000 since 3 days ago.
But that's 200,000 just in Lebanon.
Yes.
Okay.
It's millions. If you're counting everywhere.
Yes, I got confused. Okay, yeah, no, that's great. Really exciting to just see everyone just sit and watch. I also find it fascinating. I was talking to somebody about Azerbaijan the other day and the Armenian genocide that's ongoing. We just passed a year anniversary of that. That will be up in a couple of weeks on Project Censored. If you like I didn't before I was told about it, know nothing about this. But the person I was speaking to was an Armenian human rights lawyer, said that basically what Azerbaijan is doing is it's very World War II, and they're treating this certain area, Nagorno-Karabakh, as their Sudetenland. And I feel like what we're looking at with regards to Israel, it's like, oh, well, we're going to completely ethnically cleanse Gaza and the West Bank, and then we're going to go into Lebanon. And it's like, hey, has anybody seen this movie before? Because I feel like I have. And nobody just stops with genocidal intent. Nobody just says, you know what, that's enough. I've had enough. I'm good. We're good.
Yeah.
Nobody just wakes up, like a genocidal lunatic doesn't wake up and go, yeah, I have enough blood on my hands. We're all set.
We're finished. Yeah. It really, if you are willing to commit genocide, there's really no end. Like, you have to be stopped.
Right.
You don't stop yourself.
That's all I had to say. Just some comparisons.
Yeah. All right, on a similar topic, because it has to do with, because it's Israel and it's this war, but obviously a lot of this war is genocide.
Yeah, I don't even like the word war, because you
I
have to
know.
have like war suggests that there are two armies that are fighting each other. Like, you wouldn't have called it a war, the Nazis, when the Nazis were going around like murdering the people who were part of like the underground resistance. That wasn't a like that wasn't the war that the Nazis were part of.
Right.
Like this, the
And you,
idea that there might be people who are trying to fight back against Israel in Palestine, it does not make it a war. A war suggests that there are two roughly equal sides, sides that could legitimately go into combat. That's not
like there is right now, there is a war between Israel and Lebanon, but when it comes to Gaza, it's just straight up genocide.
like, it will be a
But
war when, if, hopefully not when, but if the US were to be dragged into a war with Iran, for instance, because Iran has a very large military that's well trained and well equipped. That would be a war, and probably one that the US empire could not recover from. That would be a war.
So that being said, in whatever we're calling this, Blinken has blatantly lied to Congress in a tragically hilarious fashion. So do you want to leave this one, or should I go?
Well, so this is the ProPublica report that is what landed Blinken in hot water over the past couple of days. And basically there were two US government bodies, one of them being USAID, who is like no friend to people, domestic or foreign, that gave Blinken reports that said very clearly Israel is blocking humanitarian aid. And here's the thing. The US has on the books, not that our laws mean a damn thing to people who are powerful and rich enough not to follow them, but on the books, there is a law that the US has to suspend all military sales to countries who block humanitarian aid.
Well, specifically to countries that block U.S. humanitarian aid.
Right.
So basically, we can't be trying to aid the people while we're also arming the people that are harming them. Like, that's the law. And I'm surprised that Congress hasn't been so disgusting and immoral as to repeal this law just so they can keep doing it with Israel. But obviously, this is what's going on with Israel. We are sending them arms, and they are stopping the aid that is being sent by the United States and other countries to Gaza. Like, this isn't even, it's not even a debate. It's obvious. It's fucking obvious.
Yeah.
And so Blinken went in front of Congress, and although he was very careful with his wording, still lied. But on May 10th, Blinken delivered a carefully worded statement to Congress that said, quote, "We do not currently assess that the Israeli government is prohibiting or otherwise restricting the transport or delivery of U.S. humanitarian assistance."
That is pretty straightforward.
Now, but the reason he probably worded it exactly like that, currently, like using the word currently, is it's possible that in his back channels, he got Israel to allow specifically U.S. aid, so they keep blocking all the other aid, to allow U.S. aid in so that he could say this sentence and have it be barely
well, no, but
truthful.
what the report shows is that Israel wasn't doing that. Israel was not allowing any aid in, including U.S. aid.
Right, up to that day. I'm saying I think he might have added the word currently because he was trying to say now, basically now they are. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, but it is still a lie. It's a lie to Congress. And as you pointed out, these are U.S. reports.
Mm-hmm.
These are U.S. organizations that carefully assessed the situation and said, absolutely, Israel is stopping aid from getting in.
Well, and I mean, this also reminds me, I did an interview with a Palestinian American who had been in the Air Force for like 20 years, and he quit on like October 13th or something last year, or resigned, or it's not quit. You don't like you don't hand in your 2-week notice at the military. But he was saying that basically what he doesn't have top secret access or anything like that. He doesn't have, the higher clearances. He said everybody in the government is well aware of what's going on. well aware of what Israel is doing, because you have to be, because Israel is dependent on the United States. So it's like a child. Like, you are well aware of what your dependents are doing, right? Like, if they were killing a bunch of kids in your neighborhood, you'd know about it, right? Like, you'd smell the bodies in their closet. But like, so the idea that the US doesn't know, or like somehow I didn't see it, I didn't see that report. It's like, it's so dumb. So this ProPublica research is really important, and it of course just further proves that there's no way that the US can be like, I don't know, which is also what the US does, right? And I'm sorry to keep harkening back to the Second World War, but it's, I mean, just because there are a lot of disgusting and really eerie parallels, also because Zionists love to use the Shoah or the Holocaust as like an excuse for their dumb shittery. The US knew exactly what Germany was doing. The US could have bombed like train tracks that led to concentration camps,
Right.
but didn't. So it's like, this is a very American, a very US policy, right? Of knowing what's going on, because the US always wants to know what's going on, and it does, because it's been a superpower for so long, but then doesn't do a damn thing about genocide, about crimes against humanity. So again, like, and I'll just say this too about the whole Blinken thing. It is disgusting. Blinken is a piece of shit, and horrible things should be done to this man. But, the idea of him, like, and when I say horrible things, I mean like, he should lose his keys, right?
Yes, he should like be at a party and he takes a massive dump in the toilet and then it just overflows.
Yeah, like
And he's
awkward, horrible things.
And he's like, gotta go back out and
I don't mean anything illegal,
like
of course.
try to explain what went on in there.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
That kind of thing. Anyway, so whoever, like, let's say that he resigns. Okay, do you think they're going to ask like Cornel West to take his place, or do you think they're going to ask like somebody who's anti-Zionist, or somebody who actually believes in justice and liberation? Do you think they'd ask them to take his place? They would find someone just as bad. So it's like
speaking to the systems,
right? So it's like, I'm not saying that Blinken shouldn't have to resign over this, or shouldn't have to never work in the government again, and should be forced to like clean porta potties for the rest of his life. But like, they're not going to find some amazing person to take his place. So I think that, like, while it's important to recognize that this is how our system works, we also shouldn't take too much like of our bandwidth to focus on this and be shocked by this, because this is how the US system works, and it's how it's going to continue to work as long as there is a US system.
Yeah, great point. And I try and make that point fairly often, that these are how the systems are designed. The systems, like every bit of behavior of Antony Blinken before he got in the position of Secretary of State had to prove that he would do exactly these type of things once he was Secretary of State. You don't get to that position. You don't become the Secretary of Defense. You don't get on the Supreme Court. You don't get any of these positions of power unless you've proven every step of your goddamn life that that's who you are, that you are one of these sacks of shit, and you will defend their sacks of shittery at every stance. So, yes, it is a systemic, a massive systemic problem rather than just an individual. And, then to also just talk about the fact that this also speaks at a deeper level to the laws that the U.S. has. We have a few laws, not many, a few laws on the books, a few bills, a few acts that are designed to have us do something remotely moral. Some of them are international, like Geneva Conventions or whatever. And then I'm getting that. Don't give away all my punchlines. So, but when in the few chances where we have those, either they repeal them like they did with the Don't Fund Nazis Act. In 2013, they repealed it so that they could fund and arm Nazis in Ukraine. Or they ignore them, like the bill that says you cannot keep sending guns and ammunition and bombs to a country that's stopping your own aid from getting into the people they're bombing. We have a few of these little things designed to help our country be moral, and we fucking ignore them or repeal them or go around them. And that is systemic. Again, this is how our system of laws works. So, all right. I don't think I warned you about this one. We'll come back to, We'll come back to some foreign policy and other things, and also interesting stories about prison labor, school surveillance. We have so much coming up. And Stephen Hayes, thank you for the donation. Solidarity.
I'm looking down, like I'm physically looking down, or
Yeah, you kind of tend to look a little.
Or I look depressed.
No.
I just have resting bitch face.
Did they mean depressed? I thought they meant like you're literally looking down.
So here's the thing. I appreciate it, Stephen. That's very kind of you. But
Resting
if I
bitch
were
face.
depressed, there's no way on God's green earth that I would say it on a live stream. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Anyway, thank you, Stephen, for the donation. I think Stephen just funded your Caribbean getaway.
$5?
$5. Yeah.
Sweet. Is that
Yep.
like the Fire Island thing?
Fire Fest.
Fire Fest.
Island is very different.
What is Fire Island?
That's like the gay vacation area in like Long Island, isn't it?
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like it could also be fun.
It could. I just assumed that when you were talking about $5, you were talking about Fire Fest.
Look, I just want to know what $5 will get me. Fire Island, Fire Fest.
It will not get you Fire Island.
you know, because you've been. $10 minimum.
There's $10 minimum to get those lovely men.
No, well, if it's a gay island, then I'm not going to get the men, which I'm totally fine with. I'm tired of men.
This is a digression beyond all digressions. Because this massive hurricane has just hit Florida, and by the way, if any of you are in Florida, I hope you're doing okay. I hope your life has not been turned upside down. I assume if it has, you probably are not watching this live stream right now. But I hope things are going well for people. But I thought this article was interesting, not just about Florida, but in a much larger sense that I assume NPR does not get into. It's an NPR article about how some people don't evacuate when they're told to evacuate, despite repeated warnings that they need to get the hell out of there because of storm surge and everything else. And the reason is because many of them can't. And then they go through, the reasons that a lot of people stay in these areas despite them being very dangerous. And a lot of it has to do with being disabled, not having a lot of money, having a lot of pets sometimes, having a loved one who is disabled or can't get out, and so you're staying with the loved one. All of those reasons, one of the biggest ones being I don't have the money, let's say, to pile all of my important stuff in a car, drive to some random hotel 5 hours away, spend the money on the gas, spend the money on the food, spend the money on all this stuff. A lot of people don't have that. But what this NPR article does not get into is this is the truth for all of climate change, all of climate crisis. And we're already seeing this. There's already 100 million climate crisis refugees around the world. That the poor are not able to get up and go, whereas the rich and middle class, whatever you want to call it, can. So it's largely the poor that are suffering first and foremost. And suffering can be losing the home. It could be losing your life. But it's mainly the poor and the disabled that are suffering first and foremost in climate crisis.
Yeah. Well, and I also think they're the ones who can afford to also live in places that aren't as susceptible to these things in the first place. So, you'll notice that rich neighborhoods tend to not be in floodplains, and rich neighborhoods, so like
Right.
people might not even have the option of finding a home in a place that isn't at risk, particularly in places like Louisiana, Florida, Texas, even going up, up the East Coast. So I think that like Tornado Alley is another one, right? Like, oh, well, why do you live in Tornado Alley? Well, maybe because that's the only place they could afford to live and it's close to where they work and da-da-da-da-da. It's like the idea that people just like Tornado Alley sounds nice. Let's move there. It's like people don't, that's not how these things happen.
Right.
So I think that that's also something to keep in mind. And like that we're staring down hundreds of thousands, if not millions of climate refugees in our own country in the coming like 20, 30 years. Our infrastructure on every level, like from the physical roads to like the infrastructure of medical care, is shit. How the hell are we going to deal with that when we can't deal with people we have now, when we don't have, and we do have climate refugees. I'm not suggesting that we don't. We certainly already do. But that number is going to multiply significantly in the coming couple of 3 decades. So it's like, this is something that we need to start thinking about 5 minutes ago. And this is also why in mutual aid groups, I mean, my mutual aid threads have been popping off all day about like not just Florida, but like into the mountains of North Carolina, like people are already experiencing extreme weather and no power and things like that, flooding. So what do we have in place? What are we building right now to address these issues? And for the most part, there's not a lot of that building happening on a large scale. And that is something that desperately needs to happen. So wherever you are, if you think that you're not susceptible to some climate change shit, like that will likely change in the coming years. And we should start really collaborating on that.
Yeah. So, and this hurricane, one of the main places it's hitting is Florida, where, you know, they're having a lot of issues with, the when the wind, the temperature change, because you can't, they're not allowed to say the word. So it's the when the temperature goes up a little, and then there's like bigger hurricanes and the flooding and
Act
such.
of God, I think is what you're looking for.
Yeah, they're not allowed to say the word. It's illegal now in Florida, but that non-word is washing their house away.
They can't say hurricane?
They can't say climate crisis. There was that amazing moment in the Florida legislature a couple of years ago where the one testifying or whatever, he was trying his best not to say, and they were like, what was it that you know, why was it the teachers were, what was it they weren't supposed to say? What, the temperature was rising because of what? And he was like, well, so and the whole place was like laughing because he's like afraid of losing his job if he says climate change. Florida. You know what's nice about Florida is it shows us where the rest of the country will be if we continue down this path. It shows us the hellscape we're headed for.
It's like the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Yes.
That's what Florida is.
Just sad, lonely, dragging around chains. It's just, it is. It's, you see how soon enough, if we keep going down this path, then we also will not be able to read It Takes Three to Tango or whatever. The gay penguin story. Remember the gay penguin story?
Oh, well, the penguin had two dads, right?
Yeah, but the title was Then Comes Tango or something. It was something tango. Why are you laughing?
I just love that you remember it. That's so cute. Did you go out and buy it? Admit it.
I have 3. You got to backups. All right. Since I went ahead and brought it up, do you wanna do the tango story first?
I mean, it's not really the tango story, but it's related.
It's tango adjacent.
Tango adjacent. So this week is Banned Books Week. And
everyone click thumbs up and throw in a super chat.
And you can go to bannedbooksweek.org to read more about it. And basically it's a fight against banning books.
Ray is informing you. It's tango makes 3.
I see. Okay. I get it. A play on the takes. I get it. Mm-hmm. I get it. That's clever.
Yep.
I'm a little sick of penguins, to be honest. I've been reading the same penguin story to our kid for the past week. I'm a little sick of penguins. They're cute and all, and I've met a penguin, but you
said that like you were introduced at a dinner party.
Kind of
met a penguin.
He walked down the hall at the studio I was working at.
And he did have a tuxedo on.
And well, at the time I'd been working for like 36 hours straight. And I was so tired, and it was like 7 a.m. And I walk out of the studio, and a penguin just walks right by, like down the hall. And I was like, fuck, dude, I really got to sleep seeing penguins. And then it turns out that the penguin was there as part of like some, I don't know, like National Geographic thing that they were shooting at the studio. Anyway, all I'm saying, I'm fine with penguins. I have nothing against penguins. I'm just a little tired of them.
And then I tried to explain to her that this was the opening of one of those Adam Sandler movies, maybe Billy Madison or something, and she had no idea what I was talking about. But anyway,
I never watched Billy Madison. I also don't like Adam Sandler.
I know Adam Sandler sucks, but I'm just saying there was a penguin.
Okay.
Jesus.
And to answer the question, yes, he was nice, but he did, when they put him up on the chair by the console, and he ended up pressing some buttons that made something go wrong in the session.
She's talking about Sandler right now.
Sandler? Yes. He's not allowed in the studio anymore.
They put him up on the chair.
Okay. So basically And the title of this, like the dictionary is under fire, is actually, it's clickbaity, but it's actually true. And I'll get to that in a second. But basically, like, there is a tremendous movement of banning books, which in a lot of ways should be likened to burning books because it has the same outcome, which is the inability for predominantly kids to access them, and predominantly kids who are not white and not straight or cis. So people who already lack access to a like a just place in society are then having any kind of window into understanding or solidarity being removed through the banning of books. So and it's like it's getting to the point where like they're actually sending cops to libraries. Like this article starts with a story of a librarian who's confronted by a cop.
Down. Step away from the book.
She's confronted by a cop and questioned, interrogated about some of the books that she's been allowing kids to check out. And basically just some numbers for you. In 2023 alone, the American Library Association reported that over 4,000 unique book titles were being targeted for censorship, a 65% increase from 2022. Almost half of these attacks in 2023 were aimed at books representing the voices and experiences of LGBTQIA and plus Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color. Florida.
So that was just random.
Yeah.
Random banning of books.
Oh, I'm going to get to. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and share this too because the author of this piece, who is Jesse I'm butchering this. Jesse Hagopian. Writes that it's funny some of the books that aren't banned. For instance, Thomas Jefferson's Notes on the State of Virginia, which that title sounds amazing, frequently asserts that Black people are innately inferior to whites, physically, intellectually, and even in terms of imagination. That book isn't banned. Master George.
Thank you, Thomas Jefferson.
I know. This title is also amazing. Master George's People, George Washington, his slaves, and his revolutionary transformation that glosses over the brutality of slavery is also not banned. So,
well, see, slavery was benefit. As Kanye West said, it taught a lot of people skills.
It did. It sure did. So there have been so many, like Mouse, for instance, which tells the story of the Holocaust, that has been banned. A book about Martin Luther King Jr. has been banned. Florida passed a law making it a third-degree felony for teachers to allow students to access banned books. That could get you up to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. I'm
going to take a crazy digression for a moment.
Sure, go ahead.
Stephen would like to tell us that he has spider crickets in his bedroom that are very annoying. Thank you, Stephen, for the donation. Funnily enough, there's also spider crickets around here. So
can you guys hear it?
No, they can't hear it.
Are you sure?
No.
Okay. So in Pennsylvania. So just for people who think that this is just like a Florida problem or a down south problem, in Pennsylvania, the story of Ruby Ridges, which tells the story of a courageous 6-year-old Black girl who was the first to integrate a white Southern elementary school, has been banned.
Thank you, Lee Big John, for the donation over on Rumble. Really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting the show. Big solidarity.
So just like a third-degree felony could include like grave assault and things like that. So that's on par now with letting a kid check out a book about like Martin Luther King Jr. So like, just so we're clear on where this is.
I can't wait for the first arrest. I can't. The arrest that goes to the Supreme Court where they come in guns a-blazing because someone got out the book that says evolution happened.
Well, dude, this article starts with a librarian talking about how the cops came and interrogated her because she had checked out some books. I think it was like The Handmaid's Tale or something. Like just which is funny because The Handmaid's Tale is technically fiction. But wait, it gets
barely fiction. I tried to watch some of that show because I hadn't actually read.
It's dark.
I hadn't read the books, and I was like, "That's just too close to reality for me."
Yeah, no, the book. I read the book when I was like 13 or something, and I was like, oh. But wait, it gets better. Okay, the Escambia School District in Florida issued a ban pending investigation of the Merriam-Webster dictionary because the dictionary has the words sex, racism, and transgender in it.
You know, acknowledging that a word exists does not mean you have to like it. Like the word fascism is probably in there too.
Oh, but they're fine with that. They're fine with that. But
I think they're confusing. I think they're confusing a word existing with you have to like it.
They're banning the dictionary. I mean, I'm laughing. Like, look, I have to laugh because there's so much to cry about, and I can't. I don't have the time in my day to just sit there and weep all the time. But like, holy shit! I mean, what the fuck is going on? And of course,
boy, this will actually be nice because all the right wingers will stop understanding what transgender is because it won't be allowed in their dictionaries, and then they'll stop being douchebags about it because they won't understand what it is.
I'm sure that's how.
It's like you don't even have to. All the protest will stop because they'll be like, the what, the who.
A 15-year-old student in Ohio said that my school library has been entirely cleared out and locked in a closet. Which is ironic. Are they going to take it out of the closet? The only public libraries nearby are outright removing every piece of LGBTQ media that they possibly can. I just want to read, end quote. A 15-year-old kid.
How could this not end up working? How could this not get rid of all gay? Like, I feel like you'll join me on this, right? You get rid of the books and all gay disappears, right? Nobody has any feelings anymore inside their bodies as to.
You don't need to pray the gay away. You just need to put books on fire.
You just hide the books and then
away.
Yeah, you just hide the books and the reality's gone. I think that's how it works on pretty much everything, huh?
Yes.
Like if we just hit all the books about war and genocide, Israel would be done, right?
So.
Thank you, Kev75 for the donation.
Of course, I mean, this is going to affect, it already is affecting kids in like really dark ways. Because again, like I think, at least speaking for myself growing up, my ability to read books that not only like I found fascinating and interesting, but that I could see myself in was really important for me to feel, especially as a kid who felt like an outcast a lot of my childhood. It really helped me feel like I wasn't alone. A 16-year-old student from Georgia wrote, "The freedom to read is the freedom to explore and uncover worlds that were previously unknown. It is the ability to understand the important conversations being discussed around you. To have the freedom to read taken away is equivalent to taking away the ability to see, to talk, to listen, to understand, to be compassionate, and to be informed." This kid's fucking brilliant. I did not talk like that when I was 16. Okay. But that aside, but like, so this is what's at stake here. It's not just like, oh, I couldn't find a book. Kids are being like mentally and emotionally and psychologically tortured, I would say, because of this. And so
I was gonna say, so all of us need to do our part, and just any kid you see walking down the street, pull them aside and be like, "Let me tell you about queer." Just, I think
any kid you see,
any kid, just
and also,
and just say to the parents,
"Excuse me,
I'm gonna need a minute." Yeah. What's bad?
Slavery was bad.
Oh yeah, and then once you're done with the first topic, you go, "Okay, now it's no, mom, no, you back off." Okay, slavery. They acted like they owned people. Just do a lot of that. Just go to the park alone if you're a guy specifically.
Yeah.
And just grab kids and start educating them.
Solid.
Thank you, Arlene Chambers for the donation, for the solidarity. Appreciate it.
It might be Chambers. Chambers.
Chambers. This is the plural of Chambers.
Well, no, in French it would be silent. The S would be silent.
Arlene, okay. Arlene is saying, you already explained the joke. Arlene is saying the Spanish Inquisition, this is the sequel. I will never forget for some reason, I will never forget Mel Brooks song.
The Inquisition.
What a show. The Inquisition. Here we go. The Inquisition.
I mean, it's great. It's
It's what you oughtn't do, but you do anyway, or something like that.
So okay, so I just wanted to mention one more thing about the banned books, and then we can move on. So Firestorm Co-op, which is an amazing radical anarchist co-op bookstore in North Kakalaki, where I'm from. But this is up in Asheville, which is like the cool part of it. Yeah. So this is like Florida specific, but you can definitely find out more about it, and perhaps like if this is something that's happening in your state, which probably is at this point, you can get ideas from them about maybe how to do something similar where you are. Basically they started sending banned books that were banned in Florida back to Florida because they got a message from this guy who was like, all these books are going to go get pulped if you don't take them. And they were all these banned books that had been pulled off shelves.
Just realized. So the states like Texas and Florida are flying their immigrants to states like California and New York. Meanwhile, there are flights coming the opposite direction full of banned books. So we're flying these two things around the country.
I mean, I'm not a fan of the first flight.
No, I didn't say it was good.
But the second one is good.
I just said happening.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So anyway, I just want to say that there are rad people, a silver lining. There are rad people doing the work of trying to ensure that predominantly kids, because a lot of these are like children's books or like young adult books, are doing the work of trying to ensure that these books are made available to kids. So, yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for throwing in a couple of bucks. The solidarity, really appreciate it. Let's see. Chris Fisher says culturalism is transmitted through words, stories, and records. Without a shared ability to read, write, we cannot live as modern humans. Yeah, it is well said, and I feel like that many of these places are trying to get us to the point we no longer are living like modern humans. Mm-hmm. Singing Way says New York Public Library has banned books free to read online. Also, Singing Way, I think, said she's a librarian and it's their job to get books for people.
Right?
Any book that they want.
I mean...
Oh, yeah, here she is. Singing Way says librarian here. 25-year-old asked me if World War II really happened.
Wow, that's really, really sad.
That is pretty incredible.
But I'm glad that they were in a library at least. They're not asking that question at a Hardee's or something. It's at least good. They asked the right person. You know, you could point them in the right direction as opposed to the 12-year-old who works at Hardee's.
Yeah, they didn't ask the Hardee's waitress. Excuse me, did World War II really happen? I don't know, sweetie. Do you want more syrup on that hamburger?
Ew, what?
That's the point. Ew, ew. It's all ew. Okay. All right, we're going to get to good news in just a second, but I wanted to.
Good news?
Yeah, you send it to me.
I did.
Oh, wait, didn't you? This one?
I know.
Oh.
I never send you good news.
I have good news.
I'm Dunkin' Downer. Mm-hmm.
Dunkin' Downer, like
shove your
like DUNKIN, like
no.
the donuts. Dunkin' Downer.
I was thinking like the name Duncan.
Oh, okay.
Okay, fine. Dan. Downer Dan.
Thank you, Stevens, for the donation. Also, Steven. Also, Eleanor loves Vigo more than I like him too. I think he's great. Also, he is one of the few famous people as a leftist.
That's what I mean. I love him like for many reasons.
All right.
It's not just because he's hot. I'm not that shallowly.
Close. So this is actually a bit of an update to a story I brought to you. Was it yesterday? The day before? Yeah, yesterday. That Russia has said they have lowered their threshold for using nuclear weapons to respond. Okay. And they said they will respond to long-range strikes that threaten their sovereignty coming from Ukraine with weapons that are made by NATO or the U.S. Basically, you better not start bombing Moscow from Ukraine because we're going to stop treating this like a war with Ukraine. And we're going to start treating this like a war with everybody. NATO. And anyway, so this has been leaked by U.S. intelligence sources. And here's the thing. With something like this, when it's leaked, it means they want the world to know. This is a CIA and other intelligence departments.
Limited hangout?
What's that?
Limited hangout, which is the dirtiest word in the intelligence community.
Well, not exactly. Limited hangouts when they've done something wrong, they reveal some of it, so you think that's all of it. This is not that. This is.
Okay, I just wanted to say it.
You just felt like saying it. Okay.
Just a tip, just for a second.
Oh my God! You keep going. I'll wait
I'm
till
sorry.
I'll wait till you're done.
I'm done.
Have you finished? Get it? That was a tip, just for a second joke. So, U.S. intelligence has leaked that there are risks to these long-range strikes by Ukraine. Basically, if they give weapons to Ukraine that can be fired as far as Moscow, it could go very poorly. It's a shock, right?
I'm just like, can you imagine if this was flipped? Like if Russia gave Mexico missiles that could reach DC, would the U.S. be like, now listen, I'm just calmly gonna tell you that this is not okay. Like, no.
If Russia gave weapons to Mexico to fire at DC or some like Caribbean island, like the Bahamas or something, would the U.S. then go, this is clearly a war with the Bahamas? Or would they think it was far more than that? Exactly. Anyway, this is from New York Times. U.S. intelligence agencies believe that Russia is likely to retaliate with greater force against the United States and coalition partners, possibly with lethal attacks, if they agree to give Ukrainian permission to employ U.S., British, and French supplied long-range missiles for strikes deep inside Russia.
This is such an amazing,
shocking, right?
It's such an amazing paragraph, because if you just tell that to anyone with half a brain, they'd be like, of course, they would.
Yeah. Of course. The intelligence assessment, which has not been previously reported, also plays down the effect that the long-range missiles will have on the course of the conflict, because Ukrainians currently have limited numbers of weapons, and it's unclear how many more, if any, the Western allies might provide. Basically saying...
The U.S. is kind of over this whole thing, even though they're the ones who started
Well, they're not going to let them have peace. They're not going to let Ukraine actually sit down for peace, because they just want this war to go on as long as possible. But they know nothing's going to change. Like, very little ground is going to change. Very little, other than just lots of Ukrainians dying, not much is going to change. And the U.S. knows that, but they are fine with that. Okay, just keep dying. Just sit there and keep dying. And, but so this is, they leaked this on purpose. The U.S. and NATO allies are saying basically giving long-range missiles to Ukraine won't change the war and might get us bombed by Russia. So, bad idea. Not a great idea.
Which I feel like people could have told you, oh, I don't know, like when this all started. Like, yeah, you don't, the U.S. hubris and the need to like continuously poke Russia. It's like, yeah, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, they think they're draining Russia, which it has seemed to be.
Oh no, the ruble has like gotten stronger.
Thank you, Maria, for the donation. Solidarity. Maria's giving book advice, which I'd love that for people to throw in book recommendations in the comments as well. But yes, thank you so much, Maria. Really appreciate it. Okay. Now let's get to the good news. How's that sound?
Fucking finally.
California is on course to ban prison labor.
Forced prison labor.
Forced prison labor.
As if there's prison labor where they get to choose.
Well, unforced prison labor.
It's a little...
Well, no, is it thing technically they choose, but they're in a prison and it's like, what are they going to... It's like, sit here or go work.
Well, no, I know, but it's not exactly like going to a job fair, you know? It's like the idea that it's just... The idea that anything in prison is like voluntary is kind of funny to me. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I agree with that. But they would say, oh, no, they get to choose, but they're...
Hey, Swedish crowns.
There you go.
Tack.
Thank you. Is it pronounced Jorge?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I assume Jorge is not a Swedish name, but
I didn't know.
You know Jorge isn't a Swedish
but
name.
I didn't know if it'd be your hey.
Okay, wow.
J's are like Y's in Sweden.
Okay. Thank you for the Swedish lesson.
Yep, just educated you. Sometimes I gotta show her how it works, you know. California's moving to ban forced prison labor, but there's still more to do. California is finally taking steps to abolish slavery from its constitution by
finally. It's only been a few hundred years.
Just a bit. On June 2024, the state legislature passed the End Slavery in California Act, teeing up a statewide vote this fall on whether to end forced prison labor. As of now, though, California remains among the 16 states that allow the forced servitude of its prisoners. California's constitution, like the 13th Amendment, bans involuntary servitude, so bans slavery, except as punishment for a crime. Whether you're guilty or innocent of that crime doesn't matter. This new amendment would remove the exception, often dubbed the slavery loophole. Voters in 4 states, Alabama, Oregon, Tennessee, and Vermont, have recently approved similar proposals. This burgeoning movement to close the exception should spur us all to work toward abolishing carceral slavery everywhere it still exists. That's right, folks. Not only are we the largest prison state in the world, the largest prison state that has ever existed, at least amongst humanity. I'm not going to speak for the aliens. But we also are one of the few countries that allows slavery still.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of California has been built with these type of workers who are barely getting paid. The coastal highway there was built with slave labor from prisoners. The firefighters, something like 50% of firefighters in California, the big forest fires are inmates, and they're so-called given a choice as to whether they can do that or not. But when you're in a prison that is often way overcrowded, often very miserable, and you have the choice to get outside, generally you take it. So it's not a real choice.
Yeah. This would obviously be a very good thing. It wouldn't solve the problem of the horrific prison system in California, but especially because the California inmates have been used to fight the horrific forest fires in California in recent years. This is an absolutely important step forward.
And what was I going to say? It is odd that these are state votes.
What do you mean?
Well, I think it's a vote for the whole state. Like
yeah, states do that.
I know. Shouldn't it just be we're not going to do slavery anymore?
I don't understand.
Like if over 50% of California says that they want to keep having slave labor, I don't think it should matter.
Oh, I see.
Fuck them. There are certain things that are just wrong. Like
right. But I think that the point
we
is
have a
that,
vote on whether you get to sexually assault some folks, whether you get to murder a couple of people.
I think the thinking is that clearly more than 50% of California doesn't want slave labor. My guess is that most people in California don't know, because I don't think most Americans know that slavery is still legal in the United States. I bet if there was a multiple choice history test, most Americans would fail that question. But I agree with you.
How many decisions they make without asking us to vote.
I know.
It's like most things.
Look, I hear you.
Okay, let's get to school surveillance across the country. This is a fascinating story. Everyone, real quick, it would be amazing if you want to support the show, if you could join up at leecamp.net, scroll down to become a subscriber. It's a whopping 38 cents an episode, and you'll make sure this show can continue despite all the suppression, despite all the censorship. Or you can also do it at patreon.com/leecamp. You get extra segments. You get my ebooks, dangerous ideas, and bullet points and punchlines. You get all sorts of cool shit. So it'd be amazing if you join up over there.
Yeah. So this this story is actually part of it's like another book report. What do you call it?
I don't know.
You don't call it a book report when you write about a book as an adult.
Review.
Thank you.
Book report.
Anyway.
So wait, when you write an article, you don't call it show and tell?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I bring cookies and everything. So this is actually a bit of a book review.
Thank you, Maria.
On the book that two of my fellow Project Censored folks wrote, Nolan Higdon and Allison Butler, called Surveillance Education: Navigating the Conspicuous Absence of Privacy in Schools. And y'all can check that out wherever you get books, which I hope is not Amazon. Go to bookshop.org and it'll connect you with independent booksellers across the country. But basically, this book is about how students in the United States are surveilled without their consent, without the consent of their parents, under the guise of both security and enhanced learning, right? And so much of this is because like tech is just, I mean, when I was in school, like we had like a computer lab where you could go to like, you know, print something out, or, you know, we didn't really do research on the computers back in those days. So we went to, wait for, a library.
Yeah, the library had the computers.
So, and the Dewey Decimal System, even though Dewey was a douche canoe.
And even most of the teachers were more scared of the computers than the kids were. Yeah, kids knew how to use them. The teachers were like, ugh.
Well,
some of them.
I wasn't great. I'm going to be honest. Digital is like not really for me. I'm not a great digital. Anyway, that's a different story. So basically, U.S. schools have these really twisted connections with with surveillance companies. And I'm not talking about like, oh, college and university. No. Like K through 12, like 5-year-olds. And this is obviously like it's a very, very dark Orwellian, like panopticon type situation, but it's really like nefarious, because then these, like, the surveillance is then used to gather information about the students, right? In a way that, I mean, the same way that like Instagram does, right? But we are willing participants. We have an Instagram account or we have a Facebook account. And so we're kind of like signing up, not that it should be okay, but we're signing up for it in the sense that like, okay, I am agreeing to have Meta like track all this data about me so I can post some pictures of my dog. Fine, whatever. But it's like a 5-year-old cannot give that consent.
Right.
And would like, and the parents, likely many of them, if they knew about it, would not give consent. And yet this is something that is ubiquitous in a lot of school systems under the guise, again, of security, because we never know when your kids might be unsafe, like if they're being spied on by the state. Or, you know, we want to make sure that we have these apps and we have these things that track what the students are doing so that we can help them, right? It's always like this, again, Orwellian, like this double speak, like this, the truth is lies and war is peace. And, you know, the safety is in security. And so like, this is how this is packaged and sold. And it is fucking terrifying. And yeah.
And part of it has to do with this infatuation of like tech companies, like big tech, big data.
Mhm.
Like if this weren't a big tech company saying, oh, we're going to bring in all this money and we have all these investors and stuff. If it were just a guy saying, hey, I'm going to watch your kids from the corner of the room and
Right?
just kind of record what they're doing and I'll go sell that info to someone else. I don't think he'd get approval. I think a lot of schools would be like, wait, what the fuck are you doing? I'm just going to sit there. I'll write down like what they like and don't like and how they look, whether they look sad or happy, where they're going, what they're interested in. And who are you again? Why are you here?
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit in the corner. See, I think it'd be a different conversation.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like your ads are assholes, and if it was like a guy that,
yeah,
it's an oldie but a goodie.
Oldie but a goodie, yeah. If ads were real human beings. By the way, I want to answer this question real quick. Let's see, where is it? James Sharp asking about the interview. I assume you're talking about Eleanor's interview on Project Censored. Says he couldn't find it. I think the easiest thing, because it's not easy to find at Project Censored website, I think the easiest thing is to give them Project Censored YouTube page.
So, well, the answer is that hasn't been shared on the Project Censored website yet. It's only up on the Project Censored YouTube. So apologies.
Is that it? Yeah. YouTube.com/Project Censored. You can click the video tab and find it quickly.
Yeah. So I don't know if you just want to share.
Yeah, I'll share that as well. But
so sorry about that confusion. It will be posted on. It's not important, but basically it's up on YouTube. It'll be up on the website on Monday. but it is up on YouTube. And thank you so much for asking. And please do watch it. Please do share it. It is a very difficult thing to watch. But I think it's very, very important.
For those of you who didn't catch earlier, it's with a doctor in Gaza, and his just the way he relays the reality there is just crazy and gripping in a horrific way. But yeah, for those of you listening to the podcast who are not seeing the link, youtube.com/@Project Censored, youtube.com/@Project Censored. And click the videos tab rather than the home tab, and it'll take you right there.
It's also on the home tab, but anyway, thank you again for asking. So back to the surveillance thing. Again, like what's really nefarious about it, as Alison Butler points out, is that they play on parents and teachers' fears about keeping children safe. So the companies will sell this to the school systems and say like, hey, we are going to make your kids safer. But there's no evidence to suggest that that's true.
Safer from what?
Well, a lot of it has to do with gunmen and basically, as Butler points out, quote, we are promised a quick solution, technology, to a complex problem, violence in our society. When we are directed to look at technology as the only solution, we are uninvited from looking at other intersections or ways of thinking that might be worthwhile.
Yeah, totally.
And they also point out that this technology, go figure, targets non-white students more than white students. Because guess what, folks? The technology is only as great as the society that creates it. So the technology is racist as fuck because the society is racist as fuck. So here we go. We are creating we are the god, right? Creating the AI in our image, which is a racist, colonialist, imperialist, violent fucking. So this is the tech that we are creating. You can't expect this tech to be better than its creator, right? And so I think that
we birthed the robots, they're gonna act like us.
Right. So this is sorry, it's not a book review, it's a book interview with the authors. So if you want to check that out, it's on Truth Out. And it's despicable, but it also, like, if you have kids that are school age, you might want to check out what kind of surveillance they have, especially like if there's like school iPads or school computers, they're tracking those kids, and that's terrifying.
And also just the name of these companies, Gaggle, Securely, and Bark. I'm not okay with that.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like characters in some kind of like child show. Hey, Gaggle. Hey, Bark. How was your day? Doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all terrifying.
Yeah, I know.
It's horrible. School issue, they put it in school issue devices, not a surprise. But also some of it they take home with them. And so the school keeps monitoring the children once they get home, which means also you could have a child's device that's monitoring whether the parents are smoking weed or not, as if you shouldn't be able to live your own lives in your own homes. I mean, probably shouldn't abuse the kid, but still, I'm just saying.
Don't beat your kid while you're smoking weed is all I'm saying.
Yeah, very, very very nice of you not to do that. Thank you. But
yeah,
these are disgusting companies.
Let's say that you were beating your kid. Like, do you think that Gaggle or Bark would care? Let's be honest. They only care if you bought the matching shoes to the purse that you just ordered online. Like that's not
true.
It's all about capitalism, not about like humanity.
And I brought you the story the other day about how leaked documents from Cox Media has shown that they are indeed listening to your phone when you're not using your phone. Your phone is sitting there and they are listening for keywords so that they can then promote those keywords to you when you get on your laptop or on your phone. So that's why you see ads for things that you have only talked about.
Please, please, please get a Faraday bag. If you have a smart TV, get a baseball bat and smash it.
There's two things you need.
You don't.
Speaking of that, we're sitting in front of a smart TV. But yeah.
Are we?
What do you think a giant plasma is?
I don't know. But now I'm going to have to go get my old softball bat.
Yeah, softball bat. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Luckily, this isn't our basement, so it can't hear anything.
For phone, Faraday bag. For flat screens, baseball bat. Wait, so what if you just get one of those old early 1800s flat screens?
Those are
Those don't
nice.
listen to you,
Those are
right?
nice.
They're made out of wood and charcoal, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they don't age well, but they don't get as many channels either.
Nope. Just the sounds of the owl out in the woods.
Can only hear the muffled screams in the basement. Yes. Okay. That's why it's in the basement. Shouldn't hear me beating up Lee.
And
that's family time.
Muffled screamings and spider crickets.
Oh no, I can hear the spider crickets really well. Actually, I imported the spider crickets so that they would help cover up the sounds of me beating him upstairs.
Is that why on my phone, I'm surfing on my phone, it keeps saying, "Do you want traps to catch spider crickets?" why are you offering those? Okay. I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna do.
Oh, then I'll scoot.
Well, I figured you were gonna scoot anyway, unless you want to hang out with me.
No, you always give me a hard time about scooting, and I really like scooting.
Eleanor's heading out, folks, but I'm gonna sit and chat with you guys for a few more minutes. So just give us 1 second. I'll be right back. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Wanted to look at some of your comments real quick. Underhill says, why is anyone surprised that a nation of imperialist, genocidal sociopaths who stole their land and banned books are a problem on the world stage? I was waiting to see where the end of that sentence was going to go. And yeah, that's a good question. Why, when you look at America's history, when it's just like genocide, slavery, genocide, slavery, and then in the past like 50 years, why is the world like, why are they acting like this? They are not being cool to us. But I agree that the U.S. should stop. The surprise factor is not really there. Duly noted says, how do you explain Blinken to children? Well, he doesn't have any pupils in his eyes, which I think means he's a sociopath. So I think what you should tell to children is if you see someone with soulless eyes, just go the other direction. Uno says we're living in a dystopian sci-fi. That's very true. And I know you wrote that when we were talking about the surveillance in the school systems, which what's scary to me is like some of the most dystopian sci-fi aspects for some reason are in our schools, like for our children. Like that should be the least place. Like, go after the adults at least. If you're going to fucking destroy this world, go after grown humans. Steve Qualls says, get out of this nation. Treasonous Joe Kamala, DNC, cultist, coup d'etat, Biden administration officials. I mean, I don't disagree with you, except it's also the right wing. It's also all of Trump and all of his goons. So again, folks, don't fall into the duopoly trap that these two things are different. Don't you do that. Underhill says, I'm tired of tolerating people who are just making a living, quote unquote, just making a living, destroying our world. And that's a fair point, too. There are a lot of people across this nation who are just making a living. And unfortunately, that living is destroying our world. I mean, all the lower level people working at all the weapons contractors and all the big oil companies and all the big banks. And they're just making a living. And I have a bit of a, empathy for that. I like you find a job and you're trying to support a family, and then the idea of like leaving this job that is destroying the world and destroying humanity is not an easy thing to do. But I guess we all have to make hard choices. I've chosen to go down a path of comedy and politics that seems to be one of the most suppressed areas I could be in. I could be telling, just nonsense jokes all day long and probably be doing far better than I am right now. I also could have jumped on the bandwagon of people who love Trump and want to pretend he's somehow different when he's a narcissistic billionaire sociopath. I probably could have a lot more clicks doing that. Yes, there was I did hear something about this. Thank you, Roberto, for posting this. That the Turkish delegation and others walked out of the UN General Assembly today in protest of Netanyahu's speech. It was a pretty large walkout. There's an image of them leaving. The Turkish delegation. Oh, it's interesting. It's just Turkey. What about like South Africa and others? And many others walked out of the General Assembly on Friday in protest ahead of the speech of Netanyahu. Netanyahu entered the hall and approached the podium to address the 79th session of the Assembly. Many other delegations were seen to follow the protest. I saw about 12 seconds of Netanyahu's speech, and it was very clear that like every line he said was getting heavily cheered from the people in the balcony, which I guess Israel had somehow filled the balcony with their idiot supporters. So he was like, we need to bomb Iran. And everybody's like, yeah, awesome. I love nuclear winter. Yay. I just bought a new sweater for nuclear winter. It's very bizarre to see people cheering for a genocidal maniac. It really is horrific. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Oh, yeah, Maria, thanks for the donation. Maria said, I'm sure Kamala will get asked about this and her history with prison labor during her next rigorous interview. I like the sarcasm. Yeah, Kamala's interviews, much like the interviews that the mainstream media would do with Obama, were like, how do you deal with all the tough comments you get? Where do you pick out your dresses? But it's like, even when they ask a tough question from like Kamala or Joe Biden when he was running, they like give them the answer. They'll say like, Israel, there are some reports that Israel has been trying to stop aid from getting into Gaza. Is this true, or is Israel doing the best they can? And it's just Hamas who's stopping it from getting into Gaza. Like, they'll give them here's the answer you should feed back to me once I'm done talking. They're pathetic interviews. Absolutely right. And yes, Kamala Harris has been a huge proponent of prison labor. She was, as she said, the top cop of California, the Attorney General of California, and she made sure to keep as many prisoners in prison in California, even though it's one of the largest prison states in the world, and even though it's way overcrowded, and there were stipulations from judges saying that prisoners need to be released, and still she fought to keep as many prisoners. And the ones that were being discussed as being possibly released were the nonviolent ones, were the ones that, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, just let that's what Fox News and the Republicans would like to say. You see what California did? They let the rapists and the murderers out, and then people were getting the raped and the murdered. That's what happened there. No, that's not. The people that were being released, when people were released due to overcrowding, were like nonviolent convictions, were like minor drug convictions. It was the nonsense convictions were basically why there were the people getting let out. James Sharp says that Kamala got flustered when she was asked, how are you going to be tougher on immigration than your opponent? Which, even the phrasing of the question is designed to say basically Democrats are worse to immigrants than Republicans are. And this yet again speaks to how I've said this several times, that Trump and Fox News and the right wing need to invent a fake Kamala Harris, because he needs something to run against. And he can only really successfully run against her if she's some lunatic left winger, right? He calls her Marxist and all this stuff. He says, oh, she lets in all the immigrants. They love the immigrants. When in fact, they've deported more immigrants than Trump did. They've allowed more oil drilling than Trump did. And it doesn't mean Trump's left wing. It means the Democrats are just slightly more right wing on so many topics. It's so pathetic. But so Trump and them have created a false Kamala Harris where they go, she wants to ban fracking. Nope. She has never shown that she has made any efforts to actually ban fracking. Instead, she's made efforts to continue fracking. Let's see. Angel says, I forgot Lee is a Southerner. Yeah, I think it's clear I'm a Southerner when it's how easy I can go into the Southern accent. How easy I can slip into the Southern accent, especially when I've been live streaming for like many hours. No, I never sounded like that. I'm not one of these Hollywood types who worked hard to get rid of the accent. I have always had this accent because I have in terms of accent, I have a mixed family. My father grew up in Florida, so not everybody in Florida had a thick Southern accent when he was growing up. Mother grew up in Richmond, Virginia. I grew up mainly in Richmond, Virginia. But so I've always sounded like this. And people often don't know where my accent is from. The other weird thing was when I was growing up, about once a year. So, that's like, we'll say 15 times. Once a year, someone would ask me, like, where are you from in Britain? Like, why are you in the United States? Are you visiting from Britain? Like, for some odd reason, and I've never figured out what it was in my accent that made people assume certain that I was from England. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're hearing, but I ain't hearing it. Let's see. I will start wrapping up here soon. Thank you guys so much. I'll bring you this story real quick before I wrap up. More activists, climate defiance, and others disrupted Occidental Petroleum's interview at the New York Times climate event. So I know it's going to shock you, but the New York Times had a climate event where they invited oil companies because the New York Crimes, actually, that's better. The New York Crimes is a pro-oil newspaper with Chevron on their board and they basically never covered the persecution of Stephen Donziger because who was persecuting Stephen Donziger and arresting a lawyer for winning a case against Chevron? Chevron was prosecuting him, and Chevron is on the board of New York Times. So anyway, they have this. Oh, I didn't even know I'm blocked from this article. But the CEO of Occidental Petroleum had barely stepped on the stage when protesters interrupted and said, "You're not welcome here. We're charging you with ecocide," and they succeeded in getting her to leave and basically ending the event. Climate criminals should not be allowed in polite society, they said. It is outrageous that the New York Times is hosting a fossil fuel CEO at a supposed climate event. And they're absolutely right. And this is how the ruling elite function. They have these big events. They pat themselves on the back. They have their eyes wide shut parties, and they celebrate what a great job they're doing on climate change. What a great job this oil company, this massive oil company that funds our newspaper, is doing because they offered carbon credits to people buying, airplane tickets. And so those carbon credits were then sold to another company so they could pollute a little more. Like, it's absolute bullshit. While they continue to pump more oil than ever before, continue to send us off an ecological cliff, and they should not be allowed in polite society. Well said. There is no reason they should be allowed to have their events, allowed to have their dinners, allowed to have their nice little cocktail parties up on the rooftops. And so, yet again, this is climate defiance, essentially destroying their events because they're not able to continue the event. Generally speaking, they don't have the security to arrest everyone, and they have to wait for cops to get there. And by that point, the CEO, who is going to accept her award for being the shittiest human being on earth, generally she's left by then, she or he. So good for them, interrupting another event. Let's see. Athklim, I can't pronounce your name, says New York Times probably invites Israelis for human rights related events. That is probably absolutely true. They're probably giving IDF soldiers awards for great human rights records. Henry Kujawa says Stephen Donziger is still in need of donations to help fight his legal case. Yes, I don't have the site on me, but Stephen Donziger is collecting legal defense donations because he is continuing to fight for a full pardon rather than just because it was never decided that he shouldn't be locked up. They just sentenced him to 3 years of indiscriminate house arrest. And now he's out. He's done with that. But he was never called innocent by the courts. The courts still consider him guilty, basically guilty of going against Chevron. Guilty of standing up against Chevron. Let's see. All right. Well, love you all. Much power to you. Solidarity, all the good things. And I will be back. I live stream 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. I'm not sure about Thursday next week. I have to, unfortunately, go to a friend's memorial service, but we'll see about Thursday. But anyway, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, normally 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And you can also get this all as a podcast. It's called The Lee Camp Show, or it's called Moment of Clarity, depending on the platform. And the one with the show with Eleanor is called Common Censored. So look up those podcasts, and I will see you Monday. And for all those of you who are members at leecamp.net, my locals page, you make this show possible. I can't thank you enough. And see you later. Keep fighting.